Hello.
Oh, I'm dying.
Oh, how was it?
It was awful. Oh, gosh, it was so hot.
Ages.
Well, I thought I'd finished, and then I hadn't. I thought it was only 150 burpees and 150 front squats, but it wasn't. It was 150 cleans.
Oh, no.
I know.
Nightmare.
So,
well done for doing it.
You okay?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, thanks. Are you working as normal at the moment?
Yeah, working from home.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not too bad. How many have you got coming, Nat?
I think 3 or 4, but again, I don't really know until the exact time how many, because it's always a bit kind of up and down, really. So I think there's definitely another 3 coming. So we'll wait, obviously, a few minutes. And yeah, it's just been good practice, like good learning, really.
Yeah, no, it's good. So hot.
When do you think we'll be back at the gym?
I know the guys are hoping for I think, is it the 5th of July? I think that Monday. I think they'll know. Yeah, I think they'll know more on. Yeah, I think they'll know more on the 25th of this month.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And that'll be everything, like the park club opening it as well, will it? Everything will be open.
Yeah, because they can't go in until the park club opens. So it'd be nice to get back there.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder how many people we can have at one point, really, during the session. I guess they're probably only be able to have 3 or 4 maybe in a session.
I don't know, because I think they'll be able to have 8.
Oh, that'd be good.
I think so, looking at the floor space, because don't forget, you've got the back area as well.
Yeah, that's true. It's bigger than you think it is, actually, isn't it, in terms of how many people?
So because you've got like the big square in the middle and the back area, so I think you could have 3 along the back, maybe 2. And then I don't know. I suppose they'll most probably do a one-way system in and a one-way system out, and your kit will be set up.
Yeah, exactly. I think I went into a shop the other day, and it was there was like zones. There was 3 or 4 different zones, and you had to stay in your zone until then someone else moved, and it will be like that, won't it? We'll all have an area where we'll have to stay in the area.
Yeah.
So no. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how are we doing? Sorry, I'm a bit late.
That's all right. No worries.
Hi, Mike.
I was just going to wait a few minutes because we've got Lou and Chloe who said they're coming. If not, we'll literally do a 2-to-1. Well, a 1-to-2 session. We'll obviously just do a bit more bespoke. So, yeah, lucky you guys. I was saying I'm doing one more session in 2 weeks on stillness, so like a mindfulness one, and then I'm going to ask Sam what she wants to do about keeping it going, really, because it'll be funny when people go back to the gym, kind of whether people will make time for it as much, because it'll probably, again, people will just go back to their busy lives, so it'll be nice to offer it, but it's figuring out whether there'll be something to offer or not, really. Same with things like nutrition, I guess, too.
Yeah, I suppose it will be sort of trying to fit it in between classes and stuff as well.
Yeah, exactly, because the full timetable will be back, won't it, with like 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, all of that, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. It's going to be weird going back to the gym. I've kind of definitely, my activity levels generally are just like a lot lower now than they used to.
Yeah, I've been struggling to sort of like do anything at the minute.
Yeah.
Just through motivation, I think, more than anything else. So just because there's no separation between work and
hard.
kind of home.
Yeah. Definitely, it's tricky, isn't it? And I think it's just not the same as having someone kind of shout at you in person. You can always, I can always feel like I hide away from the camera, even if I'm on FaceTime with a friend or something. I can still get away with a lot more than I normally would.
Yeah.
Right, I guess let's start, and then what I'll do is, obviously, if people join later, I can always fill them in. So it'll be a bit of a different session because we've only got you guys. But today I wanted to touch on values and do a bit of work around values, really. So do any of you kind of know what that means in terms of the word values? Because I think it's one of those where people kind of sometimes think they know what their values are, but it's again, have you ever heard of the term, really?
No.
Not really, no.
Okay, what I've done is I've put in, I don't know if you can see if you're on your phones and things, but I've put in the chat box a few screenshots of like loads of different words. And these are some kind of common values. So it's things like family, productivity, fun, security, wealth, friends. You know, it's, I think what I'd sum it up as is what's important to you in your life. And that's kind of what we're going to focus on for this session, really. We're just kind of going to look at all of what you think are your values, are your top values. And we're going to do like a few little kind of practices to kind of really get under the skin of actually what they are, and then almost come up with a bit of a comparison list, because I think sometimes you don't realize where actually what is important, and then maybe how much you're honoring that compared to other things. So you can feel like sometimes maybe if fun is a really top value, you can kind of look through your schedule for the week and think, actually there's been no fun in my week. And obviously a lot of this lifts mood. So if we're in alignment and honoring our values, then our mood is going to be increased. We're going to be overall a lot happier. If we're not honoring those values and making time for those values, then again, we're going to kind of see that mood reduce. I think someone's maybe trying to come in because I'm getting beeping. Oh, I don't think so. No, ignore me. Okay. Can you all see that list at all in the chat box, or do you want me to list them or talk them out?
I can't see anything in the chat box.
I can't see anything.
Oh, that's strange. Okay.
It could be me. I'm not very good on technology.
Okay. Don't worry, it's fine. What I'll do then is I'll read some out. I'll probably read like 20 or 30 out. And what I want you to do initially is just write down like a top 3 of which you feel like resonate with you the most in terms of, and I guess what I'd ask you to think about is what's important to you. So kind of 3 things out of the list that I'm going to read in terms of what's important to you. And then we'll go and kind of explore that a little bit deeper. So, family, fun, personal development, career, calm, recognition, spontaneous, love, loyalty, stability, freedom, friendship, connection. I'm going to pick one more, which is joy. So that's just a brief list, but I want to get a flavour of what's come up kind of highest initially for you guys. So, Nikki, what was your top 3 from that list? Or maybe just give me 2.
Fun.
Yeah.
Family. Oh God. Don't know what the one is.
Fun, family, that's fine. You don't have to 3. What about you, Mike?
Got personal development, connection, and loyalty.
Okay. Oh yeah, loyalty is a good one.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, excellent. And what I'm going to do now, keep that in the back of your mind. So if you can remember those, great, note them down somewhere maybe, or just write them on your phone, Nikki, if you're on your phone. We're going to come back to them at the end. I just want to read, we're going to do a little bit of a mini visualization. So you don't have to close your eyes, but just I'm going to ask you to just kind of take a few deep breaths. I'm going to read a scenario, and then I'm going to ask kind of what comes up for you around that scenario. Okay, so turn the clock back and look at a time in your life when you felt your full power. A time when your spine, arms, and fingertips were tingling with excitement. A time when you simply didn't care what anyone thought of you. You were absolutely alive. Okay, so I just want you to think about that time. So have you both got a scenario that you're thinking of?
Yep.
Okay, and I want you to just answer these questions kind of internally at the moment, and we'll talk through it after. So where were you? What were you doing? Who was around you? And what was occurring in them at that time as well? And what was your impact on them? Okay. So if you're both happy to share, we probably wouldn't have done this with everybody, but as it's such a small group, it'd be good to just run through that scenario out loud, if that's okay. Nikki, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Talk us through your scenario.
So I was getting married, and all my family were around me.
Yeah.
And we had a really fun day. Yeah, and I felt like it could go on forever.
Great. And what was the, I guess, was there a feeling? How do you describe the feeling in that moment?
Warmth, cared for. Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. Okay, Mike, over to you.
Probably sort of before uni, when I was sort of back home, sort of around 19. It was just sort of training was going well. College was going well. Sort of didn't really have much of a care in the world for kind of much that was going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, just having kind of my mates and family around. Just having kind of like the freedom to go and sort of see them, kind of all do what we kind of wanted to do, sort of thing.
Yeah, perfect. And how would you sum up kind of, I guess like Nikki did in terms of those 2 words, that you'd sum up kind of what was special to you in that moment? I've got something coming up for me, but I don't know if it'll be the same.
I suppose it was just, I didn't feel like there was any pressure, just the freedom.
Yeah, freedom. That's what I was thinking of, like that free feeling that you've just
Hello.
got no ties. Hi Lou, how you doing?
I'm all right. Sorry, I thought it was at 7:30 and I was like, oh, I'm doing that thing at 7:30. Wait.
No worries. No worries. We just did a bit of an intro with everyone on values, and talked a little bit about some kind of top values that are important to you. Can you hear me okay?
So you can see my map. There you go.
So yeah, if you were just gonna, I guess if you don't mind, Mike and Nikki, for me to just go back a few steps and just update Lou as to where we are. So what I want you to do, Lou, just to start off with, just pen and paper, is note down your top 3 values. This will become a bit clearer as we work through the process, because there's a few exercises that will help you get clear on that throughout the session. But yeah, it's almost just a starting point, really.
All right.
And then I've got a little scenario that I'm going to read out that I'll ask you to almost just spend some time thinking about, because Nikki and Mike have just gone through this. So tell me when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. So turn the clock back and look at a time in your life when you felt your full power. A time when your spine, arms, and fingertips were tingling with excitement. A time when you simply didn't care what anyone thought of you. You were absolutely alive. Okay. Have you got a time?
Yeah.
I want you to just note down where you were, what you were doing, who were you with, the reaction in them at that time as well, and then what your impact was on them. And if you're happy to share, we've just gone round, Nikki and Mike, in terms of sharing that scenario. I'm going to pull out some of the key values that were present.
Okay. So my time was when I went to India. We went traveling. We did the rickshaw run. So we drove a rickshaw across India. And I did it with two really good friends, Alice, who I used to work with, and Amy, who I met and went traveling with a few years before. We were really excited, but also really, really nervous.
Yeah.
I'd say in terms of impact, like what it did, it definitely created like a much stronger bond of friendship, but a lot of trust as well, because driving across India in a rickshaw, you've really got someone else's sort of life in your hands when you're driving. So I think trust was a really, really important one.
And what was, I guess, how would you sum up kind of what was special in that moment in terms of kind of one or two words that are present?
I think it was probably like a lot about freedom. You know, you were doing something that was something that not many people have done, and something that was completely liberating. Like you were completely free. You didn't have a route to follow. You didn't have to be anywhere by a certain time. You just driving where you thought you should go, with a map. We actually had a convoy of people as well. So the group, although I was in a team with those two girls, we had like a couple of other teams with us. So we built some really good bonds in that time.
Like connection as well.
Yeah, a really good connection. Like we're all still friends, like nearly 10 years later. And just a kind of, I think it's just putting yourself out there into a situation that you would never normally come across.
Thank you. That's perfect. And just to fill you back in, Nikki was talking a little bit about on her wedding day. And she was feeling like family was really important to her in that moment. And just, you said feeling really supported, didn't you, Nikki, and cared for were the kind of key values that came up for you. And Mike was talking about a time pre-uni where training was going well, he had no cares in the world, and it was a lot about freedom and kind of no restriction to kind of, it was that care piece, wasn't there, about just being able to make decisions and not have kind of responsibility. So that's really helpful. I want you, as we go through this process, just note down some of those key values that come up through some of these scenarios, because sometimes they're actually really different to what we think our value set are, because with values, when you get asked that question, it doesn't really mean anything, and you just list off a whole heap of things, and actually they're not often the values that genuinely are important to you. Hence, going through this process will just teach you a little bit more about actually what is important and what does kind of get that fire going inside you. And that, again, like I said, the link to mood is then, if we can live closer to these values and all of these values in everyday life, then again, our mood is going to lift as a result of that. Okay, so second task, I want you to think about your favorite book or your favorite film. And what I want you to note down, what it was about this book or film that resonated with you. And what feelings did it bring up? And how would you sum it up if you're explaining it to a good friend in a few words? Who is ready to go first?
I mean, I can if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
So I went for a favourite book.
Mm-hmm.
So my favourite book is a book called The Shadow of the Wind.
Mm-hmm.
It's a book about books. It's a book about the cemetery of forgotten books, and it's set in Barcelona. It's kind of the life of this young guy that's growing up, and the characters that come into it. But throughout the book, there's sort of like this underlying mystery that by the end you get to the end of the puzzle. But I quite like the sort of mystery element of it.
Mm-hmm. Mystery.
Yeah, it's like a little puzzle stuff, but it's quite an old-fashioned book. It's set quite a long time ago. It's slightly in the fantasy realm. It's not like a true life story, so it's a bit fantastical. It's quite a romantic story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not just that obviously there's a love story sort of throughout it as well, but some of the characters and sort of the friendship side of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a character in it called he's his best friend, and he's a lot older, and their friendship is just amazing. It's just so nice. They just have such a great bond. He's my favorite character, the best friend.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. That's perfect. If you can note down just a few words that you almost mentioned when you were talking to me there. So like mystery, I think that connection came up again, didn't it?
Yeah.
Will then make parallels back to kind of how we're then living and honouring these kind of in our day-to-day life. So Nikki or Mike, do you want to go next? One of you?
Yeah, so my favourite film was Grease.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Grease because it was they were having so much fun, and
yeah,
at the time there was no care in the world. They were just doing what they wanted to, and it just made me happy.
Yeah, love it. Just fun, carefree.
Yeah, not a care in the world.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting as well is we can have different favourite films or favourite books depending on what stage we are in our life as well. So this value work does change as we change. So it might be that your childhood film is very different to what is your favourite film now, but that'll be because you're changing and evolving as a person.
Yeah.
So again, it'll be interesting just to kind of constantly have that as a reference for the future in terms of what you're resonating more with, and it'll tell you something a bit more about yourself as well. Mike?
It's actually, so TV series, it's something that I watched fairly recently, but sort of The Witcher, I don't know if anyone's sort of
I've seen that.
But basically the main character is sort of his history is from a young boy he's taken away and sort of turned into effectively sort of a bit of a lone wolf. He doesn't have many connections, but sort of as the series progresses, comes into contact with other characters, which kind of is, I suppose, they're perceived to be quite cold. Sort of persona tends to, or seems to, kind of like melt away a little bit with these characters. Sort of, and they definitely value sort of loyalty, sort of a cause and sort of certain people. So I suppose I quite like that aspect, and the fact that the entire story, although it kind of jumps around, it all kind of interlinks and connects quite nicely.
Definitely. And what would you say would be the word that sums that up in terms of what's coming through strong enough? I guess there was a few words that you used, but
so I suppose sort of like the character's loyalty more than anything. Either his ideals, or if he'd kind of made a promise, he always kind of followed through with it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And like I said, as we're going through this, just keep a note of these words that are coming up, because I think already some of you, like, you're coming back to really similar themes. But the more we can kind of, again, just have these touch points, then I think it's really interesting, nice reference point to be able to come back to. So we're going to flip this now on its head, and then we're going to do a little quiz to finish. I want you to think about, we kind of call it like a trough experience, but it's the opposite of a peak experience. So it's a time in your life that you were you were struggling a bit more, and maybe it might be a specific, if you can make it a specific scenario of kind of where you were exactly, who you were with, what you were doing, that'll really help us pull out what it was in that moment that kind of wasn't kind of how you weren't living your values, if that makes sense. I know this might be a bit harder to do than the kind of like peak experience, but yeah, if you can just spend some time thinking a little bit about an opposite experience, that'll be good. I'll give you a few minutes. I'm on mute. I always do that. You'd think I would get better at not always being on mute when I'm trying to talk by now, of having millions of Zoom meetings a day. How are we getting on? Do we need any more time?
Nope.
This might be a bit harder to connect to. Nikki, do you want to go first?
Yep. So I think my real struggle was the end of last year when I lost my dad.
Mm-hmm.
It happened so quickly. It was within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really, well, not that it was planned, but we didn't know we were going to lose him that quick. So yeah, that really got to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what was it about? I guess it's obviously the family piece, isn't it? But it feels like it's that short amount of time that was made that extra hard, in terms of, like you said, it almost didn't give you time to prepare for any of that at all.
Yeah, I don't think you ever look at people like you're going to lose them.
Yeah.
You always see people and you always think that they're going to be there, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
And I think also distance for me as well, because he was back in Liverpool and I had to go back to Liverpool and help Mum. And then obviously Zach and Bria had to come back when he was, didn't have long to live. And I think it was just the whole distance as well. It wasn't like it was round the corner.
Yeah. So even harder.
I felt a little bit torn between everything.
Mm.
I felt torn between being here and also, being there. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Lou, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I found this one a bit harder, like you said. I was thinking about things that I've sort of been through in life, and basically I'm pretty lucky, and apart from my parents getting divorced, which I vaguely remember, I think one of the times I've been at my lowest was after I broke up with someone, and I really hit rock bottom. And I think it was my family, definitely, like my mum and my brother particularly, were amazing. So was my dad, and particular friends. So Carol was a big part of it, and just having like someone to talk to and rant to.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of support from my family and my close friends. I think the other thing that it just gets you through it is time. As everyone on this call has been through this and knows, it took me quite a long time. My ex-boyfriend was an asshole to me after we broke up. He didn't handle it well, so he didn't know how to behave around me, and we still had to see each other. So I think my approach to it was to just keep being kind, which is one of the values that I listed earlier. Yeah, of course there were some bad times, but I tried to always just sort of be kind, and even if he was horrible to me, I wouldn't kind of retaliate.
That saying is kill someone with kindness, and that's there's a reason why that's saying, isn't there? Because actually it's powerful. Yeah,
so I think that was my approach, and I guess that's probably the reason why we actually ended up managing to maintain a friendship that could have turned really bitter. It didn't.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, that's perfect. And like I said, with this one, it's sometimes a bit harder to see how it links to your values, but there'll be something in terms of, like you said, that kindness piece, and for Nikki it's obviously family and that connection piece, but it's just another way to look at it, and for different people different perspectives of this will be easier and harder, but you'll have a few just reference points that you can actually be asking yourself regularly and checking in, because it's something we almost want to just be having there as a bit of an anchor to bring us back to kind of, you know, we're in control of the life we want to live. So sometimes this can just be a nice reference point to come back to, really. Mike, over to you.
I'll probably say the time I struggled most was towards the end of uni, kind of like final year, sort of dissertation.
Yeah, lots of stress.
That, revising for exams, all that kind of stuff, really, really struggling, sort of suffering with sort of anxiety and all the rest of it, trying to kind of get myself through, sort of chatting to sort of like my family and stuff. They were sort of saying, or they were making comments which they thought were sort of encouraging and helpful, but I didn't find them particularly encouraging or sort of helpful. In fact, I found it the opposite in some cases. But it was, sort of that. But it was just kind of me trying to then find sort of the time to kind of reflect and sort of help myself almost. Sort of, because it was just my mindset, sort of taking things more personally than I perhaps should. So sort of that, and I had sort of my friends at uni that were kind of going through the same sort of thing. So they were very supportive and sort of helped get me through quite a lot of it.
Yeah. Perfect. So what do you think about it was the most, like, that helped you? Was it that connection to your friends and similar people?
Yeah, I suppose that, sort of like the connection with my mates, sort of like knowing that they're going through exactly the same thing as kind of me, sort of like maybe at like different stages, or sort of they were handling it slightly better. But sort of that, and sort of like realizing that actually sort of I had more power in the situation than I felt I had.
Yeah.
And just kind of sort of reiterating that to myself.
Yeah, definitely. I guess it's an important lesson to learn, isn't it?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. That was really, really helpful. Like I said, just note down the things that are coming up for you. And it might be that we're going to kind of go back to your initial list at the end and just kind of compare and contrast. And there'll probably be one or two things that are coming out every time. But yeah, like we said, there might be something that you've not considered as a value that actually is really important to you, that these kind of scenarios bring up. So going to mix it up a little bit. So in the chat box, hopefully you can see it, there's a link to a values test. Can you all see it? Just want you to, I will post it again, but I just want you to go off into another web page and then complete this. Can you all see that now?
Yeah.
It's going to take about 5 minutes, and it might just give you another perspective on it, because some of the words that are used here are slightly different. And again, sometimes the more words you use, the better, because actually you often don't think of feelings or thoughts or beliefs as values sometimes. So yeah, if you could just complete that for me, and then we'll come back to the room and discuss it. So just shout me when you're done, and I'll
okay, bye.
I'll not interrupt you.
I'm done.
Awesome. How are you getting on, Mike Lou? You nearly there?
Not far off, I don't think.
No worries. Just going to say, if we do get cut off, because I'm not sure that Sam has changed the licenses over, because I've just got a message saying, you've only got 40 minutes today. If it does cut off, just literally join back in on the same link if I lose you in the next few minutes.
Will do.
This is taking a bit longer than I thought it would.
Okay, I'm done. I think I picked about 31 that resonated with me off the list.
Oh, wow, did you? So that made it a bit
Well,
longer.
it's really hard to say which ones don't resonate with you, isn't it? Like,
it's quite hard to only pick 10, isn't it? I think I picked about...
was I only meant to pick 10?
I think it says, yeah, around 10, but it doesn't stop you, so I think that's the problem.
I went all out.
Clearly everything resonates with you. It's good.
Well, they're all very good values.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're all mutually exclusive.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Again, it's just another way to help you think about things as values, because I think sometimes things you just haven't, for me, I haven't considered a word as a value before, and actually then thinking about how you demonstrate that in your life is quite an interesting activity, really. And remind me, I did this earlier, but how many does it tell you at the end? Does it give you your top? How many? Is it 5?
In fact, I don't know. I've lost it now. Shit. Okay, still that good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, top 5.
Okay. So we're just going to run through our top 5 in a minute, and I just want you to have a think about if there's any similarities or differences from your initial list, because you did 3 at the start of the call, and obviously this 5. It'd be interesting to know if any are similar, if any are really different. So just have a think about that while Mike's finishing. Okay, while Mike's finishing, Nikki, what were your top 5 that came through?
Okay, so my top 5 were family.
Yeah.
Happiness.
Yeah.
Empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Loyalty and kindness.
Perfect. They're quite similar to the initial ones, aren't they? Fun is the only one that maybe wasn't on there, but maybe isn't even almost phrased as fun. That can be sometimes. So it's interesting that actually a lot of yours haven't shifted at all. So you've kind of known quite strongly what they are throughout the call, really, which is good. Lou?
So my top 5 were self-respect, happiness, freedom, empathy, and peace.
Freedom came up, didn't it, when you were talking about?
Yeah, a lot of mine. I think I might do this again and just pick the top 10 that resonate with me, because there were sort of so many, like, which one do you value more, self-respect or family? And I'm surprised at how this came out, to be honest. But I think self-respect sort of, I don't know, if you don't have respect for yourself, some of the other ones are really hard to achieve.
Definitely.
Yeah. And peace.
Yeah, and again, it's a really nice reference point to come back to as well. If you're feeling like something's not quite right, and that you're, just feeling a lot like that your mood is lowered for any particular reason, or something just feels a little bit out of whack, but you don't know what it is. Sometimes an activity like this can kind of just give you a different perspective as to kind of what might be out of sync, because it's all about alignment. When you're in alignment with things that are important to you, your mood's lifted, and general kind of mental well-being is obviously more holistic, and you're happier. So it's another thing that can be in your toolbox, really, that can kind of help you check back in. And like I said, this will change through your life, so your values aren't always your values. Because growing up for me, like, success was a really strong value as a child, because my dad was so hardworking and like career driven, and he was always at work. So for me as a child, it was, well, if I'm going to be successful, I have to work really hard, and that's not a value at all for me now. Actually, it's completely shifted to the opposite. So I think it's funny how the conditioning of what we learn changes our value set as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Mike, if you finished?
Yeah, just.
Good timing.
Did you pick loads as well?
I picked like 35.
I know. Well, go back and do it after, and like Lou said, pick 10, because you might find that actually, again, that it's a little bit easier, and it kind of it throws out the stronger ones a little bit more. But there's no right or wrong, really, as to how to do it.
Well, because it said like pick at least 10, I was like, oh, okay, more is probably better then. So I just
it's not that clear, is it?
But yeah, my top 5 were kindness, freedom, happiness, curiosity, and success.
So freedom came up, didn't it, when you talked a little bit about that first kind of carefree, no care in the world piece. Okay. And what I want you to do now, the last kind of final thing before we let you go and eat and do what you need to do, is I want you to pick 3. Obviously you had 3 at the start, you had 5 from this quiz. I want you to pick the 3 that resonate the most. So from whichever list, because you've been noting down words throughout this whole thing, top 3 in order of which resonates the most in terms of values. And then I want you to rate how much you're currently honouring those values in your everyday life. So your 1, 2, and 3, they'll each have a score on 1 to 10. So 1 is you're not honouring them, and 10 is you're honouring them completely. Lou, do you want to go first? You look like you're finished.
Sure. Okay. So
in order, first, second, third, and then give me a score for each of them.
My number 1 was honesty. I gave myself 10 for it. It's pretty generous. I'm so honest. Possibly
too honest.
Possible. I can be way too honest, and occasionally, well, I say occasionally, always generally quite blunt with my honesty, which sometimes I think can make me come out like a bit of a troublemaker, especially at work. So I do always try to be really, really honest with people with what I think. So yeah, my second one I put as family. It didn't actually come up on my list of 5, but my world revolves around my family. Today I've taken a day off work to drive up and 2 hours away to take my granny to a care home. Like, there is nothing I will not do for my family and friends. And when I say family, I kind of include my close friends in that. It's just my big extended family. And my third one was kindness. So I gave myself 10 for family because I do look after them. Kindness, I gave myself 8.
Mm-hmm.
I try to be kind, but sometimes I have to get myself in check a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes the honesty comes before the kindness, and being honest isn't always the kindest thing to do.
Yeah, and I think I sort of just about to say some of them will link. So actually, being stronger in one area might make you weaker in the other. So it's again kind of picking the scenario and then thinking about actually how you need to act in that situation, really, because yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? And the kindness, is that more to others or to yourself, or a bit of both?
I think a bit of both, really. I think generally, I was thinking about a situation at work where I was very, very honest, and it might not have been the kindest thing to say, to be sensitive to other people's needs. But generally, I always, I think it's something I try to do. I think I could do with being kinder to myself sometimes.
That's going to say that was usually the bit that we're bad at, because we don't think of ourselves in all of this. We're kind of thinking,
I will often do something or commit to doing something that I don't really want to do because it makes someone else happy, rather than and it's something we talked about in the first session, and I think Tash said the same thing, is I'm going to say no more, and it's not because I want to upset anyone, it's just that it's not what I want to do. So I think it's about being kind to yourself.
Yeah, and filling up your cup before you then can fill up anyone else's, because we can't go and help and be there for other people if we've got nothing to give ourselves. So that's always an important lesson. Okay, thank you. That's really helpful. I want you to think, whilst we're moving on to the others, just think a little bit about how you can improve your lowest score. So just a few things you can do to improve that kindness piece that we'll take away from today. Mike?
So the top 3 I chose was 1, freedom, 2, kindness, 3, connection. So I scored myself a 3 out of 10 on freedom, because I am, to be honest, working most of the time, particularly at the moment. So I need to take a step back and give myself some.
That's the one that's important to change around, build some boundaries around it.
Yeah, definitely. And then 2, kindness. I gave myself 8 out of 10 on this. So I generally try to be sort of as thoughtful as possible with whomever I deal with. So maybe not into myself.
Yeah, exactly. We don't often think of it as kindness to ourselves, do we?
Yeah. But I'm certainly trying to be sort of kind toward others. So it is sort of something I do tend to live by. Just because no one wants to know you if you're a bit of an arse. And then 3, so connection, I gave myself 7 out of 10. Just generally sort of with family and my friends, I'm pretty close to. Generally those connections that I do kind of make sort of over the years, sort of I do try and sort of keep up with. So it's just, I thought I did reasonably well on that one.
Yeah, awesome. Good job. So think a little bit for me, while we're going on to Nikki, about that 3 score in terms of freedom, and what you could maybe create some structure around that to kind of provide yourself with a bit of freedom moving forward, whether that's saying no more or examples like that with work. It sounds like it is. Cool. Nikki, over to you.
Okay, so family, I gave an 8. Because I feel that I try and do as much as I can for all the family. Happiness, I would say about a 7 in that, because I'd rather somebody else be happy than me. I'd rather somebody else be okay rather than me, and I put them in front of me. Put them totally before myself. And empathy, I think about an 8, because I'm quite a compassionate person. I do feel if somebody else is upset, I feel upset for them, and I am quite compassionate about things. So I think with me, it's a happiness that I think I would need to work on.
and your own happiness, rather than, because I think sometimes we can, I used to struggle a lot with this in terms of I was only happy through someone else. If someone else was happy, I was happy, but I didn't then in turn know what made me happy, because I was kind of that was so dependent on other people. So it's figuring out actually removing that from the family and almost thinking about your own individual happiness and how you can kind of, what can make that higher and lower, and almost play around with that a little bit more. And it sounds like the fun bit of everything that you say is definitely going to bring that through more.
I mean, I think, Nikki, you should have probably given yourself like a 10 on family and compassion, because your family is your whole world. Why did you score yourself down?
We're all so modest, that's why.
I gave myself a 10. I'm like,
yeah, Lou's like, don't need any, like, well, on the last one a little bit, but yeah, 10. So yeah, just last few minutes is we're just gonna share that one or two things in that lowest scored area that we're gonna try and almost bring more of that into our life. And this is kind of links back to some of the habit work we've done, because this just isn't something that we suddenly will do, because there'll be a reason why it's lower, because it's probably harder for us to do, especially if it's towards ourselves or kindness towards ourselves, because it isn't as natural. So we will kind of follow up with this in terms of checking in and support, but hopefully the stuff we've done on habits will help some of this work as well. So Lou, if you could just give an example of how you're going to work on your lowest score area, which was kindness, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I did 3 things. So one is to take more time to be kind to myself, and to kind of, not be obligated to do things that aren't what I want to do. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is to really think more about how my behavior impacts other people's feelings. Say especially at work, I'm always the first person to volunteer to help someone, but also sometimes people get my opinions when maybe that doesn't help them where they are now. So I think just to try and be a bit more compassionate about maybe where other people are, and to modify how I advise and help and do those things. And then the third one I kind of do, but I have no, like, it's all about that sort of blunt honesty again. I've had a friend that's been going through some relationship stuff, and I always try and support, and I always try and say, look, whatever decision you make, I will support you, and I will, but you should do this. But
only if you do this. Yeah.
I think I need to just try and be supportive without letting my opinions take over, and just kind of try and be more impartial.
Perfect. That's a lot there.
I've got a lot to work on.
That's awesome. So thank you for sharing. That's perfect. Who wants to go next? Mike, I think you were the second one that went, weren't you?
Yeah. So these are 3 things to sort of address.
Yeah, or just even if it's just one, but it feels like with you, it's creating some freedom around work, because that was really high value, wasn't it? Freedom, and it feels like that's a really low score at the moment.
Yeah. So I think it is just a case of sort of ensuring that sort of I stick to my hours and not feeling that I should do more, I suppose, at work, and just creating that time for myself.
Yeah.
And then just sort of if I want to go and do something, just go and do it, as opposed to overthinking it.
Yeah.
I think is another one. So I think that's probably should address that issue, hopefully.
Yeah, and it's it will be harder in what we're going through now as well, because I did a post earlier on the fact that we've lost our structure, so our mornings and our afternoons and our evenings are all merging into one, so we don't have that kind of lunch hour. So I was just doing something for a yoga studio on Instagram Live on how to reclaim your lunch hour, because actually we've all lost that, just because it does feel like people are just putting meetings in, and there's a presumption that people just aren't honoring that time, and actually that's massive. So giving yourself a bit of structure back around, actually on these nights I'm only working till X, and sticking to that, I think might help, and you'll feel better for it as well. You'll see a difference in your productivity when then you go back to work as well.
Yes, hopefully so.
So, Nikki?
Just mute myself. unmute myself. So me, I think it's about taking time out for me.
Yeah.
And not worrying so much about everyone else, and care about myself more and bring happiness to me rather than worry about everyone.
And what specifically, I'm going to push you a bit here. So like, what specifically do you love to do for yourself that you don't do enough of at the moment? Like one activity or thing that you could.
Oh, I love going to the gym, but it's not open.
Yeah, I know. The gym. Is there what else you can do for yourself kind of at home? Is there anything like having a bath or reading a book or something that you're just like, I love doing? But
yeah. So yeah, have a bath, just watch a program on my own, chill. Yeah.
Cool.
Put some candles around the bath. Put some salts in the bath.
As soon as I light a candle, it's all, yeah, honestly. There's something, yeah, it's weird, isn't it? How you just have a few
something in a candle.
Just helps switch off your mind. Okay, I'll ask you how you're getting on. I'll ask you how many baths you've had. No.
How many candles have you had?
How many candles you've lit? Cool. Okay. No, thank you so much, guys. I hope that's been useful. It's actually been really nice to have a really small group today, because I feel like I wouldn't have been able to really do this like this in a really big group, and it's been a nice test for me just to work through some of those individual scenarios rather than just making it generic information, which the kind of habit one had to be generic just because there was so many people. I'd love you guys just to like pop me a message later and just like give me some feedback as well, because this is so new to me still, but yeah, I love that I can just use you as guinea pigs, really. I really hope you enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you.
I'll let you guys go.
Really helpful.
Thank you ever so much, Matt.
Bye, guys.
See you later.
Bye.
Be lovely.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. Bye. Bye.